All right. So I really like to go for bombastic titles. Just going to be honest. It's a lot of fun. So, in Christian and evolutionary psychology terminology, human beings would best be described as survival, uh, survival devices, survival organisms, whatever you want to say, like self-interest organisms. So, evolutionary psychology would say that the goals of life are to survive and procreate. So, live and create more life. Okay, there you go. So, Christian psychology, theology would say human beings exist in a state of sin and are fundamentally selfish. Boom. Okay, there you go. So, already we've got a good dovetailing of selfishness and survival being the key elements there of human nature that evolution and Christianity sussed out and figured out, uh, 2,000 years ago, and then for Christianity, and longer for Judaism, and then recently in like the last 50 years for the field of Evo Psych, even though evolution has been obviously around much longer than that. But evolutionary psychology is very new. Anyway, so why am I talking about this? Well, it's only in our recent era that you're supposed to assume that other people are naturally good, and you're supposed to assume that they have really good motives and that they have a magic story. Like everybody's in a Hallmark movie and you're all just intersecting. And it just so happens that somebody over here is living the Christmas shoebox story at the same time you're living the handsome baker story, that's maybe the Thanksgiving Hallmark movie. And we're all just intersecting in some way where we're all magical, mystical creatures, which don't know how that, I mean, I do know how that happened. So, evolutionary psychology is like this gasp of normal mental worldview functioning, and we do well to heed it. But like the past 70 years or so, I've seen this resurgence of humanistic sort of, well, human selfishness is good, actually, thought, which is totally wrong, by the way. Because if somebody's selfish, they're not a rational agent. They will hurt themselves and you, because eventually there's diminishing returns. So selfishness is an addiction because it's never enough. And what do we know about addiction? Well, in the throes of it, someone will continue to do what is very upsetting to get to that high. So if someone lives only for selfishness, they will do whatever it takes to be fulfilled, to get their selfish high, and then to um up the ante on that. So they'll take more from you. That's narcissism 101. Is it selfishness that's unbridled, unrestricted. And we know as a culture that's not good, but we encourage people to be really selfish and that somehow they'll just know when to stop being selfish, which is completely wrong, by the way. We know to stop being selfish with empathy and goals that involve things outside ourselves. And so, anyway, um, one thing that's really interesting, like a lot of what people do is they want to either find someone to mate with that's a better partner, or if they don't have anyone, find someone who's great. And if they don't like their partner, branch swing to the next person. Or they want to make other people feel bad. They want to be better than somebody else. So getting an optimal mate and being better than other people are two huge drivers of society. How can I say that? Well, very easily, actually. But specifically, how I can say it is replace that word being better than other people, that term rather, with ascending the hierarchy, right? If there's people, we always focus on the element of being higher up, meaning that we did work, but we don't really just come right out and say, like, I want to be better than people. But that's really what that means, right? Or it could mean you want to be more equipped, you want to have worked harder and be smarter than other people. That's fine. Or make more money because you put in more work into certifications to be a financial advisor or whatever. I'm fine with that. I think it's fine to dress it up and gussy it up, as the old folks would say. But I think we completely miss the element of self-protection and awareness when we don't help people to understand, or help ourselves to understand, that fundamentally people are there to advance themselves. They're not there to help you. And so we have a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety when the cultural narrative that's not founded on science says, well, everyone's actually here to help you and things should be going really well. And then when people face reality of warring, selfish sort of storylines like Game of Thrones. Okay, so life is less like Game of Thrones. Excuse me, scratch that. Life is less like Hallmark movie and more like Game of Thrones. That's what it is. But people aren't told that anymore. Gen Z and Gen Alpha and their Gen X parents, I'm just going to offend everybody here, have decided that for some reason that's just not reality, and that somehow just deciding one day I am a good person is enough. It's not. You have to have an encounter with the transcendent. You have to have a transcendent value system. I'm not even saying you have to be Christian. I've met amazingly nice non-Christian people. But you certainly have to have the ability to see outside yourself. So selfishness isn't a virtue. And if anybody had an iota of sense on that, first of all, that whole rational agent theory, people aren't rational agents. They're not sitting there deciding rationally what's best for them. They're doing what emotionally feels good and what shores up and takes care of their insecurities. People are more like drowning victims and less like stockbrokers, even stockbrokers. So kind of tired of that. Go to the science and see what it says. Don't go to people in the 1800s who were cracking wise and making metaphors that are not based on the human nervous system and its function, because we are emotive beings at our core and relational beings at our core. So another interesting thought, personality disorders are contagious and people want to spread them. People who are mentally hurt with personality disorders want you to know, and they want you to suffer for them and with them. Jeremy, how can you say that? My gosh, what's wrong with you? Well, 10 years and counting of clinical experience of a very targeted and consistent nature, which is anything you want to be good at, do it often. All right. So I wanted to be good in my field. I worked in it often. I had a job full time. So people with personality disorders like borderline personality disorder are very upset very often, and they want you to know about it, and they want you to know the way they think, and they want you to know if you just didn't know something and happened to accidentally offend them, you're awful, and they want you to know, and they'll tell you, and they'll say it again, and they'll advertise that you're bad for this and that you made them hurt. And so it's very much like a zombie virus where you're bitten by something and it causes you to feel the way that other person feels. It spreads that way. Depression doesn't spread in exactly the same way, or anxiety doesn't. Like, people kind of take ownership of that. Like, well, okay, so I don't like my depression, I don't like my anxiety. But when it comes to personality disorders, the disorder is in the way of thinking, and the person wants you to think like them. So, all right, that's it for me. I'm going to let this one post and write it out. I may edit it, but let it post first. So, happy Friday.